Hi, I'm Sandy.
And I'm Rick.
And this is Thursday's Child. Today we wanted to talk a little bit about getting services for our children, mainly through the school system. The school system has two parts to the services that they provide to students with disabilities. The first part of services is from birth to 3 years old, and that is the early intervention stage, which in many cases can be a really pivotal period of time where you can lock in some really great therapies and great interventions that can set your child up for better success down the road. In our case, we did avail ourselves of those early intervention services. In Tennessee, it's called TIPS, which is Tennessee Intervention.
I have no idea.
Okay, TIPS. That followed him Richard getting into preschool with the Nashville public school system. God, really not doing well today.
Or anything we can edit out, so.
Okay. The early intervention that we did was followed by Richard entering the school system with Metro Nashville Public Schools and starting in on an individual education plan. In Richard's case, we did take advantage of early intervention through TIPS, which is Tennessee's version of early intervention programming, through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act that is managed and administered through the Department of Education, and we'll get to that piece later. After early intervention, Richard entered the school system as a 3-year-old in pre-K and had access to individual education planning. So an individual education plan was drawn up for him. It looked at what goals he would need to have in his IEP so that he could learn to best effect and succeed in the classroom. It also goes through different therapies that might be required in order to help your child succeed in that most inclusive environment, which is another piece of what is mandated by law. Our children have to be in the least restrictive environment possible. And that's very important, actually, because being near peers and being exposed to the entire school and other children is a really important aspect of socializing our children, getting them more acclimated to being part of the larger world, and that's what we all want for our children.
Right, and a little history lesson in all of this. We talk about the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It began as a piece of legislation in 1975. Basically as a handicapped children learning program. Before 1975, if you look at the statistics for 1970, less than 1 in 5 children with disabilities were educated at all. And so you can imagine of that being just an absolute strain on families, strain on everything essentially that goes along with those children even remotely becoming part of our society. So the law was passed in 1974. And then it has been reauthorized a couple of times, most recently in 2004, where the law was changed with the name for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It is essentially the policy legislation for the federal Department of Education. And then the Department of Education makes sure that those parts of the laws are followed for all 50 states and territories in the United States.
And that's part of the reason that we have federal laws like this, because if you leave things like this up to each individual state, it becomes sort of a lottery system where you might win the lottery because you're in a state that actually takes that seriously, and has many advocates for individuals with disabilities, and a firm belief that that is something that needs to be part of how we function as a society. There are other states that believe that that is not a thing that they should be providing. Already we're seeing some of those states trying to put laws in place that curtail the benefits and the rights of people with disabilities to a free and appropriate education. Through the years, what we've discovered is that the IEP process, in our particular case, it has generally been a very positive experience. Sometimes people find the need to bring in an advocate so that they can have someone who is on a more neutral footing speak for them and with them and give them a bit of legal help if it's required. In our case, what we've discovered is that the provision of that free and appropriate education has given our son the ability to have experiences that we do not think he would have had access to peers who can help him learn certain skills, access to the broader school system and to experiences outside of the classroom that, again, he probably wouldn't have had access to without that required free and appropriate education and his individual education plan.
And for those students that actually can participate in mainstream classes, the IDEA law and its enforcement by the Department of Education has allowed many students, up to, I think the statistics of up to 80% students actually have enjoyed some sort of mainstream classwork in their education, be it in the sciences or arts or music or whatever. The point is that our children, our Thursday's children are the ones that always benefits the more that they're actually able to take advantage of the system. But these things have to be enforced by law, and they have to also have the resources and dollars to back it up. So
in the current climate, with a lot of things being torn apart.
And this is, we're in April of 2025.
Yeah, the Department of Education is one of those agencies that the current administration is trying to abolish. That doesn't abolish the law. We still have the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So while states may try to curtail the rights that are provided for under that act, that is not legal. And so we have a fight ahead of us, but we still do have that law on the books. The only body that can abolish or eliminate that law is Congress. And I don't foresee them trying to get rid of that overall law.
But then again, we've certainly seen other things that we thought were sacred cows that are no longer.
Yeah. So that brings up the question of what can we do as citizens, as families, in our individual states. One thing we can do is keep ourselves up to date on the latest developments with the Department of Education. Currently, as of right now, what we're hearing is that there has been a reduction in force. There have been letters sent out to many employees of the Department of Education in an attempt to reduce the number of people who are working there. I can only think that that's also an effort to reduce its efficacy. Ultimately, the end game is to shift the responsibility for all of this out to the states wholesale. So we can keep up with what's happening at the federal level, but we can also keep tabs on our state legislature and our local level. So at the local level, keep in touch with your school board members. Ask them what's going on. Ask them to keep tabs on it. Ask them to do town meetings where they can community meetings where they can give us information about what is going on specifically with our school system and with the state legislature.
And make sure that it's a priority in their budgets.
So really, I guess what we're saying is that we all have to become very actively engaged with how our government at the local level and at the state level is engaging with its citizenry, the kinds of laws that they are trying to pass, how their budgets are allocated, and we have to let those legislators and those representatives who are in the public sphere know when they are not doing things the way that we think they need to be done.
Because, at the end of the day, there is a legal framework for challenging the care and education that your child is getting, but it shouldn't have to get to that particular point. Those should only be in the rarest of cases where that services are not being provided that are literally enshrined in that child's IEP. But we can't get to a certain situation where this becomes more of the norm rather than the exception.
And just to give you a quick shorthand, the summary of the key benefits for our students under IDEA, they're entitled to a free and appropriate education that includes individualized instruction, the provision of an Individualized Education Plan or 504 plan, and accommodations to make all of that work. They are entitled to therapies, including speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavioral services if needed. Parents are entitled to participate in this process. They have legal rights. They have the right to be in a team atmosphere that can plan out the IEP with them, and they are given various advocacy tools by the Department of Education. They are entitled for their child to have career and life skills planning and post-school supports. They are entitled to their children being protected from discrimination or exclusion. And they are entitled to access to general education with necessary supports. So that least restrictive environment is often a general education classroom. And if anyone tries to tell you other than that, they're wrong.
Right. So ultimately, this as parents and as grandparents and those that care for somebody with a disability, this is our call to action, because at this point, we cannot just leave it alone that everything is going to work out. Calling your congressmen and senators on the federal level to make sure that these laws stay intact, and that you believe in what the Department of Education is doing in order to make sure that the states keep this intact. If the DOE goes away, then it's going to be up to us lobbying the state legislatures to make sure that budgets continue to be fully funded for children like ours.
So we will put some links and phone numbers to contact your various congresspeople. We probably won't put state by state legislature numbers, but we'll at least give you a few starting tools to get in touch with your legislators and let them know. They really do need to hear from us. And whether your comfort level is just with like a postcard or getting on ResistBot and sending a message that's more automated, all of those work, or a phone call. Whatever your level of comfort and ability to get in touch with them is what you should do. So
Yes.
we'll put those tools in the chat.
Right. Anyway, we want you to like and subscribe, and keep in touch with us and tell us more of what you'd like out of this channel and the community. But the lesson for this particular video is that it's going to all be up to us to make sure that our children and those that we love are going to continue to succeed as it has been for the last 50 years.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Let's talk a little bit about... What?
We have to introduce ourselves first.
Hi, I'm Sandy Ewing.
And I'm Rick Ewing. Or just say, I'm Sandy and I'm Rick.
Hi, I'm Sandy. Hi, I'm Sandy.
And I'm Rick.
Why am I out front? I look like a giant beach something or other, like Pepto-Bismol. I think you should be here.
No, because I always need to be sitting.
I know, so you can sit.
No. This worked the first time, it's going to work again.
It doesn't work.